That's right, folks. Another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby LaMarco, and today we're breaking down Week 9 streamers and flexes, a.k.a. the Joe Flacco Show. We're excited for that. All this and more starting right now on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. And to help me celebrate the re-establishment of the greatest starting quarterback in the history of the NFL, it's Derek Favret. Go follow him at Derek_Favret on Twitter. What's going on, Derek?
Doing well, yeah, for sure. Very happy to see Joe Flacco back in the starting lineup.
Now, listen. All right. I kind of baited you into this. We didn't talk about this pre-show. We are going to talk Joey Flax today as a streamer. Before we get into all this stuff, there's been a lot of noise about Anthony Richardson, about how, they're sitting this kid. Josh Allen and him have the same stats. And I understand why everybody's a little, sensitive about it, right? He's a top 4 pick. You got to give him time. The Colts said they wanted to give him time. Now, where I think this differs is I honestly think that Shane Steichen and the Colts organization realized, holy shit, Flacco is still playing at a high level. What happened with Cleveland last year down the stretch? Joe Flacco took the Browns on a hot streak to go to the playoffs. It wasn't like he took over a 10-4 team and then they made the playoffs. No, Flacco was the reason why they made it. He was the comeback player of the year. And so when I'm looking at the situation, I think for me, the biggest thing is when you're looking at guys like Josh Downs and Michael Pittman and A.D. Mitchell and Alex Pierce and Jonathan Taylor, and you're looking at the surrounding talent and how well they look and develop with Joe Flacco. Honestly, if you have a quarterback that could give you top, and by the way Joe Flacco is playing, he's a top 10 quarterback. He plays like a top 10 to 15 quarterback right now in these games. And so why not take advantage of that? Allow the skill position groups to really develop and become because there's only so much you could do running routes on air. You want to get some of that game action, get into the flow of the game, get that confidence up. Let Flacco and the Colts ride this out to see how good Flacco really can be. And then in the next year or two, you go back to Richardson when he's got more time to develop. There's nothing wrong with that. Clearly, when you watch the Anthony Richardson, it's not all there right now. And that's fine. But I think the problem with the Josh Allen, there wasn't a Joe Flacco behind Josh Allen, who, by the way, every time he steps on the field, the guy's doing awesome. So I don't know what your thoughts are on the situation. To me, I just think that Flacco is the reason why this is happening.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've got a lot of thoughts on it, to be honest with you. But yeah, someone like Josh Allen, I mean, he's the exception to the rule. I mean, we came into this year and so many pundits were penciling Anthony Richardson for MVP. And same with CJ Stroud, based on the year they had last year. But I mean, come on, these guys are young. Playing quarterback in the NFL is hard to do, and these guys, they can benefit from having a little time on the sidelines, getting used to the speed of the game, getting used to all the play calls and the players and the formations and the defenses. I mean, there's something to be said about that for someone like, Aaron Rodgers, for those years that he was behind Brett Favre and in Jordan Love, who was behind Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there's something to be said about having a young quarterback on the sidelines, for a little time, get used to the game, get used to all the speed, all the formations, everything I just said, and then bring them in, and when they're a little bit more mature and developed. So, yeah, I think this is great, a great move by the Colts. I imagine just the sheer volume of calls that they received from other teams asking for Joe Flacco's availability, by the trade deadline that, they probably say, well, shit, we got to do something about this and put him back in the lineup. So, great move for the Colts. And, if you own Michael Pittman, which I do in a lot of leagues, Alex Pierce in particular, you're rejoicing right now, with Flacco back in there.
Josh Downs might become these guys might be Josh Downs might be a league winner. Yep. He might be. That's how good this could get. Just the way Downs has looked in general. I mean, listen, Pittman's Pittman. This definitely helps him too a lot. But Downs, man, looks special. And now you give him Flacco. And I'm just going to go back to, I don't even care about the Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers sitting behind a quarterback. I don't think, yes, when you have Brett Favre and Alex Smith, who's taking your team to the playoffs, was a Pro Bowler, resurgence under Andy Reid. But really, I honestly think this is a Flacco thing. Like, if you watched Flacco last year and this year, you're like, you know what? I understand that when he left the Ravens, there was a lot of bad play with the Denver Broncos, with the New York Jets. But remember, the New York Jets, what the hell did the New York Jets have? Like, what are we talking about here? The Jets, prior to Aaron Rodgers getting there, had like one of the bottom 5 skill position groups. Maybe Flacco isn't good enough to elevate a bunch of talent around him to elite set, but when he has good weapons, he clearly plays well. I mean, look what he did with Joku and Amari Cooper last year. Like, it is, to me, like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what it is. And this is Shane Steichen for him, like, for me to him, it's like, I always say to myself, don't you want to win? Like, the most important thing is to win the games, get into the playoffs, see what happens, right? But everybody talks about winning Super Bowls. You got to win Super Bowls. Oh, and Anthony Richardson has this, Cam Newton-esque upside where you can, or Josh Allen upside, whatever you want to call it. He could get you to the Super Bowl. Be honest with you, but like, the floor is that you don't make the playoffs at all. And like, Flacco, by the way, when you're winning football games, and by the way, you're winning it because Flacco is playing well, not in spite of him. It's like, I don't know how many times, like, it was clearly a reset. Like, clearly we need to reset our thoughts about Flacco. Like, he's playing top half quarterback play level. He's one of the best 16 quarterbacks in football. And like, watch the last 2 years, that's what you see. And that's why I think they made this move, because if Flacco was playing like a backup old man QB, they would just stick it out with Richardson, but it's not the case.
Yeah.
And honestly, I just think that when you can develop the talent around him, and you develop Pittman and Downs, and you get them the good reps with Flacco, when you insert Richardson in there, it's a very similar situation to Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, where they had these really good quarterbacks where the talent around them were already developed. Like Kelsey and Tyreek Hill were already on their way to we're basically Pro Bowlers already. And so you drop Mahomes in there, and his talent elevates it to another level. That's what you could do with Richardson.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, he clearly gives them the best chance to win, and it's good that they realize that. And for certainly for fantasy purposes, we're happy about that.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it, because I have a lot of Josh Downs, so I'm super excited. So let's do it. But like, yeah, I know I'm going to skip around, but let's get right into it with Flacco, because one of our key quarterback streamers this week, and Derek, write it down, 8 minutes flat for the QB streamers on our timestamps. We're going to take care of you. Unlike those other guys who do the waiver wire show, never sent me timestamps. Make sure the next time you see them, Jamie, by the way, epic fail. You guys are jumping on. Jamie's on, of course. Jamie, before, how you doing, man? Always good to see you. Can only stay for 27 minutes. We'll take it, Jamie. We'll take 1 minute from you, buddy. We love it. Epic fail. Would you rather have Joe Flacco or Jameis Winston? And by the way, Tyler, we appreciate you. He's got a super chat question on a Wednesday. God bless you, Tyler. Me and Tyler, I mean, listen, he's getting a Christmas card this year. That's all I know, with all the goodness that's coming out of him. All right, we got to start one question for you. We have Dell. Now, we're going to assume half PPR, but Tyler, if it's different, let us know. If it's full, but you got Tank Dell on Thursday Night Football, which is why the urgency here, going up against that really vaunted Jets defense. You got Reed, and you also have Coleman. So Reed this week might have Malik Willis as his quarterback against the Detroit Lions. And then you also have Keon Coleman this week. Buffalo Bills, I believe, have the Miami Dolphins, correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah, they're hosting the Miami Dolphins. Yeah.
So those are some tough matchups. Honestly, if Jordan Love plays, this to me is a Jaden Reed, no questions asked. What's your thoughts here?
I agree. I mean, we're probably not going to know that though before tomorrow. But to me, it's either going to be start Tank Dell and expect the volume against obviously pretty good Jets defense, or just wait and go with Reed and certainly hope that Jordan Love plays. I mean, the news that I saw, I think it sounds like Love is tending towards playing, but unfortunately, you have to make that decision tomorrow night.
Yeah. I'm waiting.
It's not Coleman. I mean, I'm taking Coleman off the board. Frankly, it's going to be between Dell and Reed for me.
When it's Reed for me. I don't know if this is gonna. I have a weird. So last night when I was like putting in my waiver stuff, right? there's something about Malik Willis. Something changed for him. Like, he looks like a legit quarterback now. But the thing about Malik Willis is that, like, he is a different type mobile quarterback where he's going to run the football. They're going to be very run heavy. And if you remember early on in the season, they didn't throw that much. And when you got Dobbs, Watson, Tucker Kraft, Josh Jacobs in the backfield, and a mobile quarterback, you're asking a lot. And it's road golf in Green Bay. So I'm not expecting the huge Lions, scoring onslaught. This game could be lower scoring. But when you flip it on the other two matchups, like Dell against the Jets, Coleman against the Dolphins, I would probably wait it out, Tyler. I'm going to wait it out. Hope that Jordan Love plays. If he plays, it's rock solid Reed. If it is Malik Willis, God, is it still Reed? I let me see some real quick because I believe let's just do some real quick because we have the time. Jaden Reed. Let's see. Sorry, I'm looking up Jaden Reed right now because I want to see what he did against so he played against Indy and Tennessee. Yeah, numbers weren't great. 4 for 50 against Tennessee with Malik Willis, 2 for 9 against Indianapolis. Did have some rushing production. That sucks. I would say this. Let's wait for tomorrow. If you see a practice report, best I could do for you now is this. If you find out that Jordan Love looks doubtful by tomorrow's kickoff, I would pivot to Dell. Otherwise, I'm going to wait it out for Reed. Sorry, man. I didn't know. This is tough, but yeah, it's a tough call, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, I would say that. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to have to do it there. All right, we got a couple people jumping in here. We'll get to your questions at the end of the show, guys. Obviously, we do appreciate you, Tyler, being a super chat. Honestly, man, really do appreciate it. It goes a long way for us. And by the way, as a reminder, we donate 10% of all proceeds to Good Sports at the end of the season. So I think we could donate like $5 right now. So let's try to do more than that for the holidays, guys. All good. All right, let's get into QB streamers here. And I do want to, and I know you probably have your notes perfectly in order, Derek, because you are a smart man and you know how to do things. But we're going to start with Flacco because we've been talking about him. He actually has the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Vikings are a good defense, but they just allow a ton of passing production this season. 7th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Is there anything in the numbers that worries you about streaming Joe Flacco this week?
No, it really isn't. I looked at both home and road for the Vikings, and there's been quarterbacks Stafford, Goff, Rodgers have all come out of there with at least a pair of passing touchdowns. In fact, Stafford had 4 last week. But no, I'm really not. Flacco himself, if you look at his home and road, he's pretty consistent. That's not really going to be a factor either. And it's just volume. Of course, he has Thomas back or JT back as well. So that's going to help, I think, open up the passing even more because you've got to play the run and it's going to open up the passing. And he's a volume passer. So, yeah, he's definitely a solid flex or if if you're in a super flex and you've got Flacco, he's a must start for me and as a super flex.
Yeah, in the other 2 previous starts, I mean, the Tennessee Titans game, 22-38, 189-2, not the greatest output on the road against Tennessee, but Tennessee has been surprisingly okay against quarterbacks this year. So this is a top 10 matchup. So I dropped Rodgers for Flacco, hoping that I could get some spark on my one team that's struggling. I do have one run team this season, which is not 500, which is sad. But speaking of Aaron Rodgers, actually, before we move on to Aaron Rodgers, let's talk about some of the guys that you could potentially start over for Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco or CJ Stroud on the road Thursday night.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, easily.
Yeah. Let's pick on some people. Let's pick on some people real quick. Kyler Murray against the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, let's see. That's at Arizona. They're at home, but I'm still going Flacco. I just like the upside there and the volume that we're not necessarily going to see with Kyler Murray. So I'm still with Flacco.
Trevor Lawrence or Joe Flacco?
Yeah. If it was in Jacksonville, I might be I feel a little bit differently because, Philadelphia is certainly a team, although they are playing better. And the defense is playing better lately. I will give them that. But they are a defense that you can exploit. But, losing Christian Kirk and possibly losing, the other rookie receiver too.
Brian Thomas,
Brian Thomas Jr. This week, possibly. I mean, Evan Ingram should have a monster game if you've got him. But no, I'm going to go Flacco in that situation as well.
So I'm going Flacco in all three of those. I will say this: you just said something about Evan Ingram. There's a chance he could be the number 1 tight end rest of season.
Yep.
Him without Kirk last year was a different level. And listen, I like Parker Washington. I actually picked him up in some deeper leagues. If you talk to Jeff, our local Jags affiliated fan, he loves Parker Washington. He thinks he's a good player. He actually put up some production last week in filling in for Christian Kirk, and he's got a really good matchup this week against the Eagles in the slot. That being said, Evan Ingram, I could literally be the number 1 tight end in fantasy. And so honestly, just as like a thing of note, like if you have one of the elite guys, like let's say you have Brock Bowers or Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews, one of these high profile name guys, I would not mind dropping from one of them to Ingram and upgrading a running back wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like I honestly think that is something you can get away with. And the other team might be more aggressive about getting a Kelce or a Mark Andrews or even a Brock Bowers on their roster. Non-dynasty, of course, for Bowers. But that is something I would wholeheartedly do because Evan Ingram could be a game changer.
That's a great strategy move. For that same stretch of time last year, we saw Ingram. I mean, he got the volume, but he was also catching those balls at a rate of about 93, 94%. And if you look at his numbers this year, he doesn't have the volume yet, but he's still catching at that rate. So if his target volume goes up, his receptions are going to go up. And again, like you said, I agree. I think he has certainly top 3 potential to be a tight end in the top 3 weekly almost. But yeah, there's a chance he could, if he had a couple more touchdowns last year, he would have been tight end 1. And so this, it's not, it's not unheard of to say that could happen again now that Kirk is out. So
anyway, speaking of QB streamers, I love this show. Me and Tarek are we don't even have we cannot stay on topic. I love every second of it. All right. Jumping back over to Aaron Rodgers, talking about him on Thursday night. And this is just my gut feeling is things are going to start turning in the right direction for them. I was optimistic Adams could hit the ground running. That hasn't happened yet, but geez, just give it a little time. I mean, the guy's got to learn the offense to what they're running right now. I understand that he was with the Packers. Aaron Rodgers has his 2 guys. I know New England. He was on the road against the Patriots. Rodgers was not great, not good, tough loss, but I think things are going to start getting better. And I think Aaron Rodgers, I prefer Flacco. I'll probably be wrong. But if you can't get your hands on one of those other guys, is Aaron Rodgers against Houston someone you're interested in this week?
So not this week, but I do agree with you. The schedule does lighten up for the most part in the next few weeks. There's an opportunity for them, like you said, to work Adams in and to get that offense, right, or some semblance of right, whatever that's going to be. But he is slipping a little bit. I'm probably not playing him tomorrow if I have better options, because I think there are a number of good quarterback options this weekend to exploit that you don't have to start Rodgers, but I am holding him if he is my backup in a 1 or a third quarterback in a two quarterback league. I'm going to hold him because I agree with you. I do think that things will turn. He'll be a serviceable fantasy quarterback, probably not a top 12 anymore, but certainly top 18 consistently, and that's worth having on your roster.
All right, let's jump over to 2. And honestly, I'll make it pretty clear that Flacco's been my streamer this week if you can get him. I saw Darnold available in 10-team leagues. I like Darnold too in that same matchup. So if you get Darnold on your roster, I prefer that. But let's jump over to Bo Nix because Bo Nix is on a roll a little bit. He looked great last week against Carolina. Believe it or not, folks, the biggest blunder, I feel like the show was almost flawless except for freaking Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams let us down because Jaleel McLaughlin decides to play well. Honestly, I just can't with Javonte. It is what it is. Now he gets the Ravens. That's a different topic. But the Ravens secondary has been a problem. However, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, in the numbers, Bo Nix on the road isn't as good as he is at home. So is there any hesitation to start him on the road in Baltimore?
Yes, and you're exactly right. Well, prior to last week, we talked about it last week, and then with the game that he had last week, he's now 60% better at home than on the road, scoring points at home versus on the road. So yeah, he again just copy and paste what I just said about Rodgers. I mean, he's a player you want to have just because he adds that. The ground yardage, and he did run a touchdown in as well, so that certainly helps a lot. So he's a player that you want to keep, but this week on the road against the Ravens, there's probably better starts there. So I'm holding him, but probably not playing him this week, unlike last week.
Yeah, I think I'm interested. Like, I want to believe in the home road tool split. I want to believe in it. And so I'm actually going to take a wait and see approach on that one. I think Flacco is going to be the theme stream of the week. The theme stream. I just made that up on the fly. It feels good.
Yeah,
all right, let's jump down. Let's jump down to the tight end streamers. Talk about some slim freaking pickings, folks. This one was not fun for me. The one that I did kind of find that I've picked up in some leagues is Noah Fant against. Now, this one is going to be 100% predicated on DK Metcalf not playing for me to feel really confident. But if DK Metcalf is out, the Rams have been very good for tight ends. Third most fantasy points in PPR allowed. Now, Derek, is there anything in the numbers that suggests maybe Fant is not a streamer tight end this week?
No, I think you hit it right on the head for me as well. I like him as a fill-in this week, but long term, he's not a guy that I'm going to hold on to. But I do like him this week. The Rams are allowing the third most fantasy points to tight ends. He's averaging about 4 targets per game. And like I said about Ingram, which I think this is a very important metric that's somewhat overlooked, especially with tight ends. I mean, he's catching 95% of the passes thrown his way, and that's huge because tight ends don't get the volume, and any target that's sent their way is so important to capitalize on, and he's doing that. So he hasn't he doesn't have a receiving touchdown yet. I think that's about to change, but I do like him. I like him over, a number of tight ends. He's certainly a streaming option as well. If you don't have wide receivers there or running backs to stream, he's a streamer, but he is a good fill-in this week at tight end for me.
Tucker Kraft if Malik Willis starts versus Detroit, or Noah Fant?
Yeah, Tucker Kraft, certainly.
Okay. Interesting. That makes me sad. Even with Malik Willis, you're going to start Tucker Kraft.
I am. I mean, I think he's shown enough. And like you said, Malik Willis is there's something a little bit different about him, and he's got the right receivers. But we've seen Kraft. I mean, Kraft. Watching him the last few weeks, he's starting to develop. Or his game actually reminds me a little bit of Gronkowski. He's awesome. You just get him the ball, and he's just rolling over people. I mean, he has a nose for the end zone or that way. So I really like his trajectory. And so if he get the ball into his hands, good things are going to happen. And so he's a player that I would take a chance on, even if Jordan Love is not at quarterback.
Oh man. What about Malik Willis? Let's take a step back, because you know how me and you suck at keeping on topic. Actually, it's probably just all my fault. You see what I just did there? A little tick of the button. Now we're talking QB streamers again. Listen, one thing that I notice about the Lions is they like to run a lot of man coverage. And when you have a mobile quarterback, that could be deadly that could allow a lot of rushing yards because you're having a lot of guys with their backs to the quarterback. The way Malik Willis has looked over the last couple first starts he made, to be honest with you, like, my only hesitation is like road golf. Playing in Lambeau has not been impressive the last 2 years. And so I'm not expecting Detroit to light it up or anything. But at the same time, like, I honestly think Malik Willis could really be a top 10 quarterback this week in a plus matchup against Detroit. How you beat the Lions is through the air. He's got all the weapons. All the guys are healthy if he's out. So if Love is out, Is Malik Willis ahead of Joe Flacco for you?
He's not, but and because of his volume. I mean, if you're looking back at the games he started earlier this year, 14 attempts and 19 attempts. I mean, he does have 6 rushing attempts in each of those games, and that obviously makes a big difference. One of those 73 yards and a touchdown. But when you see Joe Flacco, he's almost always over 40 attempts, and that just translates into 300, 350 yards and a couple touchdowns. Granted, a couple interceptions probably too, but a couple touchdowns. Where with Willis, he's more been managing the game and then using his legs. And so to me, the upside is just not. I think he has probably a decent floor, but his upside is just not there compared to Joe Flacco to me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going Flacco too. I think Malik Willis, there's something there. I just don't know what that means for the skill guys though, because there's a less, like you said, less volume. He's mobile. Not 100% sold on Tucker Kraft this week, but I'm sure I'll flip. Anyway, let's talk about a deeper name at tight end, Taysom Hill. So Taysom Hill has come back. He had 6 touches last week. Nothing crazy, but he had 4 targets, 8 opportunities total. Did get you about 6 fantasy points last week, but now he gets a really good spot against Carolina. Derek Carr should be back this week, really making them healthy on offense. Any thoughts about possibly streaming Taysom Hill against the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely he's on the radar for that. He's now that he's back and by all reports that I've seen anyway, he came out of that game healthy. So, we don't expect any regression. In fact, he should be even let loose even a little bit more. So, yeah, and frankly, the Saints are in desperation mode. They need a win. I mean, they can't afford to lose on the road in Carolina. And so Kamara, Olave, and Taysom Hill need to play a prominent role in that. So, yeah, he's definitely a streamer for me this week.
So Taysom Hill has had some good games against Carolina. But man, he gets you 4 to 5 points, or he gets you 17. It's just, yeah. And I don't know when Taysom Hill is going to go off. It's impossible to figure out, but
compared to other tight ends though, he does. I mean, we get that with other tight ends as well. Freiermuth as an example, good tight end, but boy, he cost me a win this week because he only came out with 4 or 5 fantasy points. It's terrible.
Yeah. I don't mind it. I think if DK Metcalf is out, I'm going to go Noah Fant. But if Metcalf is in and I'm really struggling at tight end, I'm going Taysom Hill. I'd rather just take the upside and hope for the best there. The last one I kind of want to talk about too is Dallas Goedert's replacement, Grant Calcaterra. I don't even know how to say his last name, but he started getting a lot more reps and he's being trusted a little bit more in the offense in Dallas Goedert's absence. He's got a top 10 matchup against a pass funnel defense in Jacksonville this week. Any thoughts about if you really need a deep name? Is he on the radar if Dallas Goedert misses again?
And that is a deep name for sure. Yeah. So I can't say this week with only just a couple teams out on bye that he's going to come up, filter up on the radar as a streamer, a flex play. I mean, yeah, Jacksonville is giving up a lot of points to fantasy points to tight ends, but they're only being tight ends are only being targeted 18% to the Jaguars, and AJ Brown is healthy, DeAndre Smith is healthy, Devonta Smith is healthy. Hurts is running the ball. You've got Saquon in there. I mean, at best, he's the 5th option, probably even the 6th option. No, I can't see where going into the week where you don't have a better option or a potential at tight end than Grant.
Yeah, I think Fant and Taysom Hill are pretty deep names, so I don't think you need to worry about it too much. I think you can probably get one of them, but it's something to watch. It's something to watch if you're running out of options here. Honestly, we want to help you guys get deep names. So
yeah, if you're in a super deep league and you need a tight end, then that's a name to keep an eye on. But I don't see in most cases that he's going to be an option.
All right. Let's talk about some running back flex options this week. Guys that I feel like are really emerging and kind of going up in usage that, and by the way, I think both are buys right now. Into is Rico Dowdle and Chase Brown. Rico, let's talk about Rico Dowdle first. The Falcons aren't necessarily a great matchup for running backs this season, 19th most fantasy points allowed, but they've allowed 15 PPR points to a running back in 4 of the last 5 games. And listen, Dalvin Cook and Zeke Elliott are not it. You can watch it, the game, not really it. Rico Dowdle looks like a good player. And right before the bye week, and now it's been so long because he was out last week, he was basically becoming the main back in that offense. And so I think for me, if you can get your hands on Rico Dowdle down the stretch as like an RB3 for your roster, I love it. But what's your thoughts this week, Derek? Do you like him in your lineups? Anything in the numbers say otherwise?
Yeah, I do. I like him. Well, certainly in a 2-back set, he's probably a decent running back 2 option, or certainly a flex play. I mean, it is unfortunate that he was a DNP last week with the illness, but he essentially now has 2 weeks off with the bye and then the missing the game last week. So he's going to be fresh. Like you said, Ezekiel Elliott and Cook are not it. In fact, I heard an interesting nugget today, which I didn't know before. When a player is brought up from the practice squad, he automatically goes back onto the practice squad after the game. It's not like in baseball where you have to be brought up and down from the minors. He automatically goes back onto the practice squad, and then they have to bring him up again next week. So Cook, in theory, is not going to be in the mix unless they decide to bring him up again from the practice squad. I thought that was an interesting note. But Rico Dowdle is definitely, I think, a buy low option, and I think he has some good matchups later in the season, and he certainly should get the lion's share of the carries there, frankly, because Elliott and then of course Cook right now they're just, like you said, they're not it.
So in the adjusted line yards matchup metric that I put together for rest of season, he's got a top 7 rest of season schedule. I really like Dowdle. I offered a team that needs a flex play. I offered him Tillman for Dowdle, and I'm hoping that he bites. But we'll see. Anyway, the other guy I wanted to talk about, by the way, classic Derek. I can't get away from baseball with these guys. You had to be like, hey, by the way, here's some baseball talk for no reason. Right. Thanks, Derek. I mean, come on. What's next? You want to start talking about the World Series? Like, what are we doing here?
Well, right? I do have it on. I do have the World Series on the TV on the side here.
I love it. All right, let's talk about Chase Brown, because he's got a smash spot against the Raiders, and him and Zach Moss seem to be trending in opposite directions. Like, Chase Brown could be a second half hero for fantasy football owners. What's your thoughts about Brown this week against the Raiders? Is he locked into your lineups? Anything in the numbers we should know?
Yeah, he is definitely locked into my lineup. In fact, this is something that I think we've seen. If you're paying attention, or certainly if you've been listening to us, you've seen this. Zach Moss got the push in the early part of the season, but it was just a matter of time, frankly, before Chase Brown kind of overtook that the majority of the workload as we've seen, and he's run with it. I mean, he's got 4 out of the last 5. He's double-digit fantasy points for you, and one of them, of course, against Carolina, he had over 23 fantasy points for you. So, he's definitely a smash play this week against the Raiders. There's nothing that I found that concerns me at all. In fact, I'm probably playing him above names like J.K. Dobbins, Pollard, Kareem Hunt, who's a darling right now. Which I'm not buying, but I'm playing Chase Brown over guys like that easily.
Okay, yeah, I'm in on both these guys. I honestly think for rest of season you should be trying to acquire them. Yep. I know it's tough to trade a running back for a running back, but like let me ask you some wide receiver questions, because in my opinion, you're most likely to find a trade partner that is looking for wide receiver help and has RB depth. So Rico Dowdle and Chase Brown are probably their RB 3-4s most likely. So in this scenario, would you trade George Pickens for one of those guys?
Yeah, if I could afford to trade George Pickens, I had the wide receiver depth, then yes, definitely, I definitely would.
Lad McConkey.
Yes.
Okay. Let's get a little juicier then. I mean, look at you all confident right
Yeah.
now.
I'm eager to make some moves.
Like I said, Devonta Smith.
I mean, wow. I'm not really a Smith homer, to be honest with you. Because Brown just gets so much of the volume there, and I mean he's kind of like a what was it, Deshaun? What am I thinking of?
Sean Jackson.
Jackson, yeah, he kind of reminds me of Deshaun Jackson. I mean, he's some games where he's going to have 130 and 2 touchdowns, and the other games he's got maybe 3 catches for 35. I mean, it just that's the feel I get for him. So I don't really. I mean, I like him fine, and as a wide receiver 3, but I don't really trust him. So I would rather have a player that I would play every week, like one of these running backs, rather than Devonta Smith.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Smith, Lad McConkey, and George Pickens all on the move. Let's get to some comments and questions before we close out the show today, folks. We did get to some of this. Let's talk. Right here. Oh, here we got epic fail. I think we can both answer this question. Downs Flacco. We good to go on there?
Yeah, I want that stack.
We want that stack all day. I think Josh Downs to me could be a wide receiver 1 this week. I maybe it's because I have him in a lot of leagues, and I'm like, come on, buddy, let's get it done.
Well,
I don't want to be. Yeah.
It's funny. A year ago, we were talking about a wide receiver in Houston that was kind of like that, and that was Nico Collins. You remember, and him and Tank Dell paired up, but Nico Collins really emerged, with CJ Stroud, and I see a lot of the similarities with Josh Downs as well.
Don't get me. I can't right now. I can't. It's a kid show, Derek. And honestly, next thing you know. All right. It looks like a new name. Parayoko. Para-YKO. I don't know. Para-YKO. All right. I'm sorry. I'm going to get that wrong. Sky's my name guy. Yep. And God only knows where he's at right now. Probably Anish Jabib. All right. If someone asked for Jefferson and Jameis to get Lamar in a super flex, would you do it? Daniels is my QB, and my other wide receivers are Neighbors, Deontay, Waddle, and Dell. I don't think so. I think I'd rather have Jefferson and
I would
keep Jefferson.
Yeah, I would as well. You don't need to start. I come from the camp that you don't need to start 2 quarterbacks as a super flex to be successful. I mean, it certainly helps, but you don't need it. And to ship off a viable second quarterback in Jameis, and arguably one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in fantasy, to get Lamar, no, I'm not doing it.
I would just say this: when you're looking at this trade, so like currently today, we're going to assume PPR because you're in a super flex league. And my mindset is like, you might be giving up between Lamar versus Jameis. You might be getting 8 fantasy points. Realistically, probably 8, maybe that on an average week. When you go from Jefferson, and listen, I know Waddle is, and by the way, this is we have to know if it's a 3 receiver league, 2 receiver league. It might be a 2 receiver league because you only have 4, maybe 5, 3. But if it's a 3 receiver league, Dell right now is averaging about, 12 fantasy points right now. Waddle is, if you go off last year's numbers and with Tyreek, and then this year, he's about 12 fantasy. I mean, I made a joke on the show. Enjoy your 11 fantasy points from Waddle, and he got you 8. So, I mean, like, I'm just as a hater. And Deontay's moving to the Ravens, where we're not sure with Zay Flowers what that's going to look like. And my only point is, you're going from 19.4 PPR points per game with Justin Jefferson, and you're probably dropping to about 13 with these guys when you pick the right matchups, most likely. So you're going to lose about 7 fantasy points, and maybe you get 7, 8 back. It's too big of a drop-off to give up Jefferson, in my opinion.
And everything you said, and here's the clincher, both Lamar and Daniels have week 14 buys. You can't have both of your quarterbacks in the super flex have the same bye week. They both have week 14 buys.
You always got to have a guy who knows the buys. I love it.
So no, definitely not.
All right. We got a couple things. Oh, I know it's EPA. It's from Tyler from earlier. We also have Epic Fail. Very interesting thanks season. Or is that thank you? I don't even know. I like it, though. I like it. Bo Nick's call last week won me my matchup. Great call. Make sure you join those shows. Jamie will check back. But hi, Jamie, in the future. You're in the future right now. If you could it's just saying hi from the past. Okay, I just want to let you know. All right, Eli the Reaper. I like that. It's pretty good. Like Eli Manning. Let's do it. Drop Russ for Flacco. Now I think when a lot of these questions, sometimes to me, it's like season long versus streamer. And I obviously, Pittsburgh this week has.
They're on bye.
Are they okay? They're on a bye.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great question because, like, in my opinion, it's based on if you need a starter this week.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like this is a starter. It sounds like it's a QB2 stash. I don't know if I would rather stash Flacco over Russ, but I wouldn't mind dropping Russ right before the game start, picking up Flacco because Russ is on bye. No one's going to pick him up. And then you could always pick up Russ next weekend.
Yeah.
Probably.
If you need to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would, I'm the same way. I would go ahead and get Flacco. I mean, we don't know what his other quarterback is. Probably a pretty decent one. If assuming Russ is your second quarterback, you probably have a decent one, but there are a bunch of buys coming up as well. Like we keep talking about, and having Russ past his bye or, Flacco ready to go as your backup. I don't think you can go wrong either way. Russ has actually looked pretty good, honestly, and he's commanding that offense pretty well. And so give him a week off to further that. I'm okay with him as my backup moving forward, but same with Joe as well. We talked about, we love him, and if you can roster him as well, I mean, why not? So either way, I think I'm fine.
Let's see who they got though. So they have. Oh man, I messed this up. So Pittsburgh has Washington, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Baltimore. That's a pretty good schedule. Yeah, coming out of the bye, Washington and Baltimore is pretty good. Yeah, I would say this. If you need to start Flacco this week, fine. I'm great with this. But, like, honestly, I'm okay with stashing Russ. He's going to come out of the bye and have really good matchups. I think you're probably going to start him. But like I said, Eli, if you want to send us a message before we close the show about who your starter is, or if this is for a start. I mean, obviously it's not for a start because you would definitely drop Flacco. So let us know who your QB1 is. But other than that, if you don't catch us by the end of the show, join us on Sunday because we'll be live for 2 hours every Sunday before kickoff. We do a 2-hour start-sit show, so make sure you join us live on Sunday. Let's jump down to Victor Blanco. I have CMC and Reed. The Jamar Chase owner wants both. Do I accept? I have James Cook and J.K. Dobbins. What are your thoughts here, Derek?
Yes, I'm making this trade. Okay. Are we expecting the Christian McCaffrey, that we've all grown to love right out of the chute next week? Or, I mean, he's certainly an injury risk, a re-injury risk. To get Jamar Chase, and you've got Cook and Dobbins in the bank already. I'm making this trade. I want Chase. I like CMC, and I would take a shot at him. I think in a all things considered, but he is an injury risk, and if you can move him for someone like Chase, who again arguably is one of the top receivers, if not the top receiver in fantasy, definitely make that move.
I need more I need the full roster, and I need to know. So Victor, here's my thing here. I'll be on Friday, and I'm also going to be on Sunday. But if you want to hop on in the next few minutes, send us your entire roster and what your starting lineup is, because I would be curious. Like, do you start 2 running backs, 3 receivers, in a flex? And like, if you got James Cook and J.K. Dobbins, that's great. But who's your RB3? Like, I also want to know, like, who are your 3 wide receivers right now that you're starting if you have to start 3? Like, because in some cases, like, honestly, I think Reed. Oh, here we go. There you go, Victor. On the spot, baby. I love it.
Love it.
Josh Allen, Bo Nix, CMC, J.K. Dobbins, then he's Cook, and then he's got the backup for, San Francisco outside of Mason, and Drake. Drake who? Oh, Drake London. Sorry.
Drake
Goes to the
London.
next line. It goes on the next line. I was like, Drake. I was like, what the hell's going on? Shakir, DJ Moore, Reed, Hopkins, Sutton. I'm 3 and 5. So I actually don't. I understand where you're coming from. 3 and 5. You need to win now. You don't want to be messing around anymore with the CMC stuff, and you're getting chased. Does seem like a shit ton though. Like Reed is a top, 20 wide receiver, and you're giving up probably maybe the best player in fantasy playoffs potentially for Jamar Chase. But you got to win now. So I understand that. And then let's say he start 1 RB. Oh, wow, you don't have to start 1 RB, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flexes. So let's say for argument's sake, you can start James Cook. You got J.K. Dobbins in the back. But then you got to start, let's say your new lineup would be Chase, London, DJ Moore, and maybe Hopkins. We'll see what Hopkins does with Mahomes, of course, and then Sutton on certain weeks too. Yeah. All right. I mean, I think it's a lot, but you're kind of 3 and 5, and you kind of don't really have the luxury of just waiting for him to get ramped up. So
right. And Reed is not always consistent, and you got the quarterback issue there, like you said, and CMC. He's going to need some time to get to full speed. Assuming he gets there. And you don't have the luxury. If you were 6 and 2, I think I would be more of the opinion to wait. But 3 and 5. If you add Chase to that lineup with Allen and Cook and Dobbins in the backfield with London, Drake London is a top 10 wide receiver. Yeah, I think you can rattle off a few more wins and get right back in the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
Man, he has another one here too.
Yeah, I know. It seems like a lot, but at the same time, you know what? You're 3 and 5, and you get 3 weeks of Chase before his bye. So, yeah, I'm okay with it. I honestly, I'm good with it. It's Chase. At least you're getting one of the top, 5 players in fantasy, most likely. But honestly, can I say this? Let me ask you this: who would you rather have than Chase right now? Would you rather have CeeDee Lamb? Would you rather have before you make the deal, why don't you go ask the other top tier guys like Lamb, Jefferson, and see what those owners would take that deal first? Because I might rather have CeeDee Lamb than Chase. So before you make this deal, just go reach out to the other owner and be like, hey, I'm about to give up CMC and Reed for Chase. Would you take that for Lamb?
Yeah. And a good point. And a good point to make on that is that other owners already paid for the bye week for Jefferson and for Lamb. Both of those guys are past their bye.
There you go.
They're past their bye. Whereas Jamar Chase still has them coming up. So, if you can get one of those other top wide receivers, you have them for the rest of the year. Whereas Jamar Chase has a bye coming up.
And I know AJ Brown doesn't sound like the sexiest name, but he has an insane rest of season schedule. And you might be able to get AJ Brown for a little less. I mean, out of the team that you have here, that's going to be a little tough, obviously, because you have Reed, Hopkins, but maybe you could do CMC and Sutton versus Reed for AJ Brown. I'm a big AJ Brown guy rest of season. He's got the best rest of season out wide schedule as well. So before closing the deal, Victor, my suggestion is go shop around a little, see if maybe you can get better deals. Like just be flat out with the CeeDee Lamb owner. I think what Derek just said made the most sense, though. They already had their buys. Now in 4 weeks, you don't have to worry about Chase's buy. You already got Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb off buy. All right, done with their buy. All right. Also, should I trade? I'm giving away Drake London, James Cook, DJ Moore, and I get back Justin Jefferson, Waddle, and Taylor. Well, here's the Justin Jefferson over here for you. I probably would take Jefferson and Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, if you line them up, Jefferson over London, Waddle and Moore, you could argue back and forth on that one. And Taylor certainly, well, you could argue that one too, but I think Taylor leans a little bit over Cook. So it's just a little bit more than a push on the Jefferson side. So yeah, I would make the deal.
Yeah, I would too. I think the other problem is, like, I wonder if this is something you've been asked or if you're trying to get, because if I'm the other team, I'm not doing this deal because I'd rather have Jefferson, Taylor, and this comes from someone who doesn't like Waddle. But at the same time, these are the kind of trades where a lot of times it gets a little muddled, and some weeks you win, some weeks you lose because you're trading on some guys. So I like 2-for-1s or position swaps, like running back, wide receiver, or I like to, 2-for-1 where I'm giving depth for talent or talent for depth. So keep that simple in my opinion. But this is one where I would go Jefferson and Taylor.
Yeah, and just kind of wrap a bow on this. The earlier trade, Chase in London, to me is a stronger 1-2 punch than Jefferson, and I guess it would be, because you would trade London, it would be Jefferson and Reed. I would rather have Chase in London than Jefferson and Reed as my top 2 wide receivers, to be honest with you.
Well, in theory, he could make both deals. And then you'd have Chase and Jefferson. I would say, I think this is probably one of the teams where you could probably shop around. Maybe you can do something with the CMC, because we'd rather have Jefferson over Chase slightly. So but you could theory could do both deals, but then you'd have your running back would be Taylor and J.K. Dobbins. Then your receivers would be Chase and Jefferson. And then we wouldn't have London anymore or CMC. So really, and Reed. So essentially you're in theory. Yeah. I would actually do both. I would actually do this deal. I would do Jefferson and Taylor, and then I'd also do the other deal if I couldn't get CeeDee Lamb, for example. All right, let's shoot that epic fail. This one I don't like. I don't like this question, epic fail. I actually don't like it at all. Half PPR, Tank Dell against the Jets. Jalen Waddle. Miami's playing who this week?
They are on the road in Buffalo.
Oh, woof. JSN against the Rams, and then Cedric, the sexy man, give me all that Tillman, is playing. The Browns have who this week?
Chargers at home.
At home, yeah. Yeah, this is going to be a tough one. What are your thoughts here, Derek?
I guess my first inclination is to sit JSN. Because we just haven't really seen what we're expecting there, and all the other three have higher upsides that are realistic upsides with the volume with Dell, and then with Tua back with Waddle, and then we saw it with Tillman the last couple of weeks. So I think without digging in, and I haven't looked at the matchup yet. In all fairness, I know the Rams are pretty
the toughest slot matchup in football.
Yeah. So I would sit JSN. I like the upside of the other three.
JSN is my new. I can't with him. I can't with him anymore. I'm done. It's been bad. That's just my biggest bust. The Rams have allowed the least amount of fantasy points to the slot this season, and even last week in an okay matchup in the slot against Buffalo. I mean, it was raining. The other thing, this is kind of a little loaded because, if DK misses again, that game could be a little bit better. But I would sit JSN, especially if DK's in. But if DK is out, I mean, how good has Waddle been on the road? I mean, like Waddle on the road in Buffalo, like, I have the power to look this up. I'm curious. I'm going to look up Jalen Waddle.
So, and while we do that, his neck, he just clarifies that he needs to determine if he's going to start Tank Dell tomorrow, and to me, that answer is yes.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. The secondary for the Jets is a little banged up, and so there's something there a little bit. But yeah, I would say JSN's definitely the guy I'm not interested in starting at all. Of course, Jalen Waddle did not come up at all. Mm-hmm. Why did that not happen? Sorry, everybody. It's just I have a tool that I can look up a player's stats based on opponent, and I'm just trying to get it in here. There we go. Now we're cooking. Nope, didn't work. All right, never mind. I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to sit JSN. Let's just go with that. All right. Normally I would ask Sunday, but he's got Dell, of course. Yeah, we got that one.
Yeah, so we'll see him on Sunday for sure, but we'll have Tank Dell in the bank already, and that might make this question a little easier.
So we have a tight end question from Jesus Alvarez. Jesus, what's up, man? Welcome to the show. We appreciate you jumping on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you join us on Sunday. We'll be live for 2 hours every single Sunday before kickoff doing a start-sit show. All right, drop TJ Hawkinson and the red-hot Vikings. You got Kraft and Laporta. I mean, this is tough. There's got to be, and I'll admit the tight end landscape is kind of weird. It's not as, it does seem like I'm in a 10-team league, and it seems like every team kind of has someone who's okay that gets the job done. And so it's hard to trade tight ends right now. But I would say before you drop these guys, I would definitely look at your league to see if there's anybody that has any type of like weird tight end situation where you could try to trade one of these guys and pair with a running back wide receiver and get an upgrade. If I'm going to drop somebody, I always drop the injured guy. I'm going to drop Hawkinson. I don't like injured players, and he's coming off a serious injury. And when you're comparing him to two other guys who really are emerging, and I think Laporta will get better over the second half as well. I'll drop Hawkinson, but I am going to try to trade Laporta because he's got the biggest name value for something if I can.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. Look for a trade first because all three of these guys have trade value in any league, frankly. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping Laporta. And again, I've said it a couple of times. He's passed his by as well, and we see that Detroit team, they could put up 50 points every week right now, and you want a piece of that, and Laporta is going to give you a slice of that. So, and then Kraft is just a beast. If Love was out for an extended period of time, then I might be a little bit down on him. And of course, Hawkinson emerging from his injury and on that Vikings offense. But if you have to drop one of them, it's going to be Hawkinson for me. But I'm going to really hate to do it.
I mean, yeah, I the injury's tough. I do like the stash though, but I think the emergence of Tucker Kraft has really kind of changed things for your team there. So definitely look around. We appreciate it. Jesus or Jesus, whatever it is, let us know. Let us know in the comments what it actually is. We would appreciate maybe prayer hands if it's Jesus, and then maybe something fun if it's Jesus, maybe like a party or something. I don't know. All right, that's all we got today, folks. Once again, make sure you follow us across the board at Razzball Fantasy on YouTube, IG, and TikTok. And, of course, make sure you jump over to razzball.com, and we'll check out all the great articles you need to win your fantasy league. I want to thank my co-host again, Derek Favret. Go follow him at Derek_Favret on Twitter. Go follow me at Bobby LaMarco on Twitter. And make sure you make sure you subscribe to the channel and come join us on Sunday. We'll be live for 2 hours before kickoff. We do a Sunday live start-sit show for 2 hours, answering your top questions. Also, all the key injury updates, weather updates, everything you need up until kickoff. Thank you for joining us once again, folks. We are out of here.